wasn't there when that bill was granted. I think it was a compromise. There were negotiations at some point, at some levels, and he was not told. In my book, I even the letter Abiola wrote, which was you could call his last testament before he died. Everything he explained everything in that letter. Maybe I will have opportunity of looking at it during our conversation. But now, from your question, I think the story we've just had and what we are celebrating today is one experience that must continue to inspire Nigerians to do everything humanly possible to defend this country, to defend the people of this country. Because the people of this country, they actually believe in democracy. That is why they trooped out on June 12th to vote across party lines. I mean, across ethnic lines all over the country, and they voted for a candidate they feel was good enough, was to deal with the problems of our country, to start resolving the problems that we have faced in this country, that we are still facing today. Okay, Abiola, we at that time, I would say that if Babangida had not mismanaged the transition program, maybe we would not have had that tragic outcome where, I mean, the June 12th election that was free and fair was annulled, and then this also led to Abacha's tyranny. We became murderous, and it was an epoch of impunity. There was this murderous onslaught. It's as if he was looking for, he had his blood lost. He wanted to kill people, as many as possible, to prove that he was a tough guy, he was strong. He was always saying that we can take tough decisions. The Nigerian army that we know, from the Civil War experience, from the ECOMOG experience, from their various operations across the world, on peacekeeping operations and all that, it was an army that we ought to have been very proud of. A military that we ought to have been very proud of. But at the time, when Abacha now came in, after in fact, I don't see any difference between Abacha and Babangida administration. Abacha's administration was an extension of the Babangida administration anyway. So there's no need to draw a distinction between the two. So I said the Nigeria during that period, Nigeria became a pariah state. There was so much human suffering, so much lives were lost. The military was bombing its own vehicles. People were being killed. And I remember in Lagos, at the point, Marwa even drew a line on this. General Marwa drew a line. Lagos State Governor drew a line on the sand. He said we should cross it as pro-democracy activists. We crossed the line. They tried to have a rally for Abacha in Abuja, and we said, okay, we are going to call out negotiations to go on. Right, if we cannot call out 2 million people out, actually we call it 5 million march. Then we should apologize to the Nigerian people. And we were able to counter the Abacha, those who were marching for him in Abuja. And that was the beginning of the end of the Abacha's administration. And he saw it. He knew that he would be challenged. So he became more murderous. So at the point now, he now started arresting people. It was the day myself, Beko, and the late Beko Rasomkuti, Dr. Beko Rasomkuti, and Dr. Tunji Abayomi, and Clement Nwankwo addressed a press conference in Lagos. That was on July 25th or so. Around 25th or 26th, 1995. That the next day, Beko was arrested. In that press conference, we were saying that there was no coup. Like what this corner just explained now. We didn't see evidence of a coup. Obasanjo was not even in the country. He was outside the country. The British intelligence told him not to come back, that he would be arrested. He insisted on returning because he said there was no coup. Why would he be running away from his country? So he came. They arrested him. Initially, he was on house arrest and all that. And then, so we addressed a press conference that there was no coup. We got some documents that were smuggled out to us, and we were convinced there was no coup. So after the press conference, Beko was the first to be arrested. The next day, Tunja Belmi was arrested. Then on the 28th, I was arrested. And I spent 1 year in detention. In fact, I was released before this colonel was arrested. Because he said he was arrested August 1997. I was released on the 23rd of June 1996. That is about a year, from 28th of July 1995 to 23rd June 1996. So a few days to a year before I was released. So as I said, it was very costly for the it was a very period of cruelty and repression by the military administration, and it also showed a bold and courageous resistance by the human rights and pro-democracy forces. We rejected, and the Nigerian people rejected military rule. That was because we rejected it. That is true. The cost of human lives and human suffering was so high. The nation was isolated and became a pariah state. The military, a potential source of national strength, like the Colonel just explained now, was reduced to a Major Mustafa, General Karim Adisa, begging a major, say, please tell Oga, please help me tell Oga. That was a shame. It was, in fact, that was, Nigerian army became, it affected the army more. That action affected the army, like what the colonel said, why he had to resign. And I think he's a man of honor. From what he has said, you could see that he was a very good military officer. If there wasn't a coup, if we didn't have military role, people like him were supposed to be the role model in the Nigerian army. From what I consider, he was very articulate. He was on point on every issue. These are the kind of military that we had that was unfortunately destroyed by the army. The Nigerian army was supposed to be a potential source of national strength, courage, and pride. Supposed to be an institution that ought to be a national shield, to defend us, an institution that we should be proud of. But it was hijacked. It became a tool for repression. It was hijacked by a few avaricious officers. Some of them thought they had divine right to rule, to rule Nigeria. And they wanted to build a culture of militarism and corruption. They believe they were God has made them the rulers of Nigeria. Yeah. Okay. Maybe they were inspired by the Madam Fodio jihad or something like that. They believed they were supposed to be in charge. Okay. And they didn't like the fact that power was going to the south. They never believed Abiola was going to win. Babangida did not believe Abiola would win, even though he was egging him on, go around. Abacha did not believe in it too. So all those young officers who were humiliating people like is it Shoda?
Shoda.
Yeah, that were humiliating them. They were doing it. It was a desperate thing. It was deliberate. Just to let you know, look, you may be higher than me in rank, but your ancestry and my ancestry are different. You are from one part of this country, I'm from one part of this country. So you could still see all these tendencies all over the country now, from all these Fulani headsmen terrorizing other Nigerians. And I still think we need to handle it with a firm hand, with commitment, because Nigeria deserves to be defended. Nigerian people can be defended. We are going to prevail. I believe we can fight anything that is oppressive. Oppression can be challenged, it can be fought, and it can be defeated.
Okay.
That is what our struggle turned out. Because as I was saying in the AIT right now, during the Kakaki program, the military did not leave voluntarily. They were forced out. They realized, when Abdul Salami came in, he realized that he could not sustain military rule. That is why they drew up a 9-month transition program, and then which they now rearranged. In my book I call it an army arrangement. They could not hand over to those who will prosecute them, those who will bring them to justice, to answer for their crimes, including the remainder corruption that was enjoyed during that period, and the culture of impunity. They knew that they would be brought to account. So they had to take care of Abiola to make sure he did not come out alive. And also, you can see that they didn't cooperate with the Oputa panel. It was a parody. They wanted to look at what happened in South Africa. Babangida went to court to stop it. Buhari also went to court. So the Oputa panel became just a forum for people to tell their stories, to narrate their experiences. But what was the outcome? It didn't lead to reconciliation. It didn't lead to peace. Truth did not come out because many of them were grandstanding and still hiding the truth. You see the point I'm making. You can read Kuka's book is there. Kuka wrote about it.
Okay.
So that is why we are still having all these problems. We still live in denial in many respects. You know, that is why some people still believe that they have a right to rule this country by any means.
Okay. Let's
and
speak
all this will be resolved with time.
Okay. Let's speak it from this angle. Some people sacrifice their blood for the entrenchment of democracy. You also sacrifice almost losing your life to the entrenchment of democracy, and you led the advocacy around June 12 and democracy ideas. So what's your assessment of the current democratic rule, looking it from tracing it from 1999 till present?
Okay, like you were saying, you said you were a teenager when the election was conducted, where I was old enough to vote. But during the military administration, even this radio program would not happen. They would have closed down the station. This interview we're doing now would not have been allowed. Unless, when we're fighting for democracy, sometimes we advertise a program in Lagos, but actually we are in Ijebubo, the Catholic Center there. That is where we are going to have the program. They will be searching for us, searching all the hotels all over Lagos, not knowing that we are hiding away either in Ijebubo or Ijebubo. At the Catholic the seminar, there's a Catholic school there or something like that. So that is how we fought them, and we took risk. We challenged them. We moved initially when CLO was founded in 1987. We were more interested in prison conditions, the right of prisoners, the condition of prisoners, to see how the government can improve on the rule of law. You know, the criminal justice system and all that. Then they now started, you know, Buhari, when Babangida overthrew Buhari, he said he was going to respect human rights. So we had to hold him to that, you know, to account for that. And then, okay, talking about 99, well, as I said, it was an army arrangement. There's no question that Obasanjo was put there. It was their choice. They came to him, Babangida came to him here in Abeokuta and proposed, in Ota, and proposed to him that, look, Nigeria still needs you. He didn't say more than that. Then General Gusso came and said, look, we are working out the process, we think you could still come out. Obasanjo said, how many presidents do you want to make of me? You know, blah, blah, blah. And he talked about the fact that he had no money. Then General Judgment showed his face and said, look, forget about the money. That is not an issue at all. So gradually, he said, okay, let me go abroad and talk to people. He went to Mandela. From his book, I'm quoting from his book now, My Watch.
My Watch.
And Mandela said, follow your heart. I can't give you any advice. He didn't endorse it, but he just said, do what you feel is good for you and for your people. Of course, he had already made up his mind, because even during that period, when Abiola was incarcerated, he was lobbying to head maybe an interim administration that would do this, that would do that, you know, and it didn't happen. But so Obasanjo took over in 99. Well, it was tough for him, because what he created was more like an extension of the Supreme Military Council. General Abdullahi Mohammed was there, former Director of Intelligence. Kuso was there, former Director of Intelligence, Military Intelligence and all that. Jeremy Bewon was Minister of Police. Danjuma was Minister of Defense. And there were a whole lot of other country of former officers in the administration holding different positions. Some were in the Senate, some were governors, Magoro, some were serving in the Senate, some were senior police officer. So we still have something like a quasi-military administration.
After the transition.
Yeah, that was in '99. So we still had that. It was still very difficult for him to accept participating in civic, activities. Even though he was involved in what do you call African Leadership Forum and all that, but the military system was in place. The culture of militarism was in place. They were very intolerant. That is why they could not respond well to the challenges they faced initially, like the massacre in Zakibiam and others, the massacre in Odi, all the various massacres in the Niger Delta. Instead of negotiating with the people, reaching out to the people, setting up committees to engage the people, reaching out to traditional institutions, religious leaders, bringing the people together. Okay, for instance, that man was chief of defense staff. Defense minister. General Malu was chief of army staff. Malu was thief. The other man was Jukun. The thieves and Jukuns were fighting. And soldiers were setting there, soldiers were killed. What happened? Their response was to send soldiers again to kill thieves. And even Malu's own family members were killed. His own house, country home was burned. So it was now a question of man past man. So these are issues. If the politicians were involved, they would have been able to reach out to each other to negotiate.
Okay, but I remember then the former president mentioned that his intention then was to transit Nigeria to democracy, not basically for any good governor as such.
No,
and that he was able to achieve that.
He didn't see it as a transition. He saw it as the father of modern Nigeria. He was trying to build what he called build Nigeria in his image as father of modern Nigeria. We had meetings with him, civil society, to see how we can support him. Look at what happened. He didn't believe in the National Assembly. Within the first 4 years, they have changed Senate presidents, changed speakers, severally. When I was elected in 2003, even to release budgetary approval to National Assembly, the speaker had to go and beg Okonjo-Iweala. And Okonjo-Iweala would tell him, so, look, there is no cash backing for this, no cash backing for that. But of course, the National Assembly now, they have first line charge and all that. When the NDDC Act was passed by the two houses of both the Senate and the House of Rep, Obasanjo refused to sign it. Eventually, the House was able to mobilize with the support from Niger Delta governors to override the veto. When we brought the Freedom of Information Act, which which cancelled the Official Secret Act, he refused to sign it in '99. He refused to sign it in 2003. That is the 4th Assembly and the 5th Assembly. Until Jonathan now signed it in 2011, which is 11 years ago now. That is it. So it shows you his mindset, and he was determined to install his successors. When his third term ambition failed, he was determined to install Yaradua against all the other Nigerians who were coming. But Yaradua turned out briefly as he was trying to do well, but his illness didn't allow him to go far, and the cabal emerged to take charge, but that one also failed because he died. And then Jonathan, as you can see, was not very effective. After Jonathan, what happened? Another military man came in and ruled for another 8 years with a mindset that was not substantially different from that of Babangida and Buhari. That same divine right to rule. He wasn't open. Another clique. Cabal was also read Shegun Adesina's book. So is it Femi? Who was his spokesman? This clique was there. Even the president's wife had to cry out that his government has been hijacked. The first lady. So they were not focused on Nigeria, building Nigeria. They were focused on strengthening that hegemonic power structure, to dominate, to oppress, and to reposition themselves in a way that they will continue to dominate the process, even if they are not at the apex of leadership.
All right. So, sir, are you saying that democracy has apparently not helped anybody at all?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say democracy has not helped. The process is evolving. There are challenges. There are challenges. Even the challenges of terrorism, banditry, and all that. It's because they see democracy as a threat to the status quo. So they are challenging it by force of arms. That is why I'm saying we have to be determined, we have to be focused, we have to be firm about this. We must restructure Nigeria in such a way that the people will be protected, all nationalities will be protected within the context of a united Nigeria. That is to say, that is why I am a firm supporter of state police. If the state can have their judiciary, they can have their prisons, they should also have their police. Ogun State should have Ogun State police with only Ogun State indigents as well. They can hire anybody who is qualified, but that will be the decision of the government of Ogun State. You understand what I'm saying? They know their communities. They will be able to police their communities. Then there will still be a federal police, like FBI, working with state police in case of transborder crimes and other crimes across various jurisdictions. You know, we will still have them. We still have patrol system in the federal highways. We still have those in the marine, the police in the marine. We have forest guards created by states. A state can have its own intelligence agency to gather information, to protect its own people. If a governor is the chief security officer of a state, he should be able to secure his state. He should be able to control the instruments to secure his state, institutionally and in terms of other operationally. They should be able to do that.
Before going on, we still need to talk about the issue of restructuring, because there are a lot of arguments about the desirability or otherwise of the term restructuring itself. But I want you've been looking at the trajectory of democratic rule from 1999. You've analyzed the Obasanjo administration. You've talked a bit about the Yar'Adua administration, and you are talking about the Jonathan administration, and now we are in the Bola Tinubu. Buhari, you also mentioned a little about Buhari administration. We are in Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. Can you lead us into your experience? What's your analysis of how this administration has contributed to what we have as democracy today?
Okay, let me say that first of all, democracy works. We have seen evidence of it.
Yeah.
Yar'Adua, how did the militants in the Niger Delta, how was it disarmed? It was through negotiation. They reached out to the militants, men, moving with the emancipation of Niger Delta. They have conversation. There was amnesty. They were disarmed. And what we have today in the Niger Delta is there is relative peace, but we still have
unlike what we had.
Exactly, but there is no deliberate, organized process now of busting pipeline and stealing. What we have now, criminal elements involved in. We still have the level of criminality, which is left to the law enforcement agency to deal with, and the Navy, and others, and the police and the Navy. Okay, talking about why I said Buhari was not in charge was that when it was obvious that, for instance, the service chiefs were no longer functioning, he left them. Some of them were beyond their retirement period. He left them. People were now crying out, change these people. We have other officers who could even perform better than them. And he will not do any of such things. He was now obsessed with building rail lines to Nigeria Republic and all those, Look at what happened during the election between him and the central bank governor and all that. There was almost chaos in the country. They didn't want Tinubu to come in. They were doing everything possible to frustrate him. But as God will have it, I believe in God. God has a way of intervening in human affairs. Tinubu was elected. You can question the whole election, but he emerged as the winner of the election. Officially, As to whether he has performed well, I believe he has introduced some. That's why I said earlier that there is a flicker of hope. I believe he has introduced some measures, tough measures that are necessary in terms of how the country can be reorganized, even macroeconomic issues, policies, and all that. But as I said, we still have a major problem in terms of leadership. Yeah. Okay, a situation that that makes it possible for the Accountant General of the Federation to steal billions of naira, about 98 billion. Yeah, about that, and he was released. He's not in prison and he's not dead. Then he was given a chieftaincy title in Kano, banned by guess who? Lamido Salusi Lamido, who was a champion of anti-corruption as Central Bank governor. And then you have a situation where chief executives of the NNPC stole billions. And all we hear is that this has been recovered, that has been recovered, this has been recovered. They are not dead, they are not in prison. And then we also have a situation where the same time bank governor himself
Okay.
Now we have to deal with corruption. If Nigeria must survive, we have three major problems.
What are the problems, sir?
Corruption. We must deal with corruption. We must deal with the insecurity problems that we are facing now, the banditry, the terrorism. And then we must find an appropriate leadership that is ready to deal with this. That is, we have failure of leadership. You can put those problems together under that word, failure of leadership. If we have effective leadership, then definitely we'll be able to resolve all these problems. We must fight corruption, even if it's going to consume, even you and I talking now, let it consume all of us so that our children, the future generation, will live in a free society that is a home for everybody, where people can be recognized by what they are, their capacity, their personal achievements, their contribution to society, not because they have stolen from society. I slept at Obasanjo's presidential library. There is no way President Obasanjo should be allowed to transfer this legacy to his family, because the money they used in building the presidential library were not his personal earnings. They were not his personal funds. Many state governments were forced to donate to a particular fund to build the structures. When I saw it this morning, I was marveled. You know? So, that is one. We must not continue to allow such things to happen in this country. The other day, Babangida said he was going to now replicate his own. And these are people who have been milking Nigeria, and they are in their 80s. They have not given up. We need a leadership that will put an end to all this.
Okay.
As for Tinubu's administration, I said...
it's in 2 years after.
2 years?
He emerged as the president of Nigeria. His own contribution to what we have at democracy today.
Tinubu has been preparing to be president. He has been preparing to be president. The situation we have, as I said, requires a firm and determined response. Now, if he fails to lead Nigerian people to prevail over this factor that I've mentioned, then we should be apprehensive. Can he take us there? Can he renew hope? Can he secure Nigeria and consolidate democracy? I think the jury is still out there. Right now, there is no doubt that he has taken some positive steps, as I said. I have seen good intentions in infrastructural development. Because if you are not out there, you will not know. I was driving from Abuja to Auchi. The construction all over the place. They are repairing all the roads. I don't understand. The east-west road is being repaired. the Calabar, the Lagos Calabar Road. I was with him in Calabar during the campaign when he promised to do that road. During the campaign, he was doing a what do you call it, a town hall meeting. I was there when he made that promise. Now he's doing that they've also started the Lagos Badagry to Sokoto road, and there are other those he called legacy projects. I think this project will define our will be critical factors in future economic development of the country if they are successfully executed and sincerely. I must say that. So I've seen some positive steps to bring the regions together. Yes, some people will say, okay, you are creating new structures. But I think, for instance, this the Badagry to Northwest Sokoto Road, the Southwest, North Central, and Northwest Development Commission should show interest. All the states in these areas should be able to, the affected states should be able to come together to work with the federal contractors and the federal institutions responsible for constructing these projects, oversighting them, making their own input, contributing to connecting roads and rail and other building economic corridor around along this infrastructure. I do understand, and also helping to guarantee security, along those areas. All those that is why I support the creation of the commission, regional development commission. It will bring those states together, because if you say abolish states, you can't. People will not agree.
I want you to talk on that. Maybe,
okay, I will talk on that.
Restructuring. You identified 3 key factors that is responsible for our stunted growth, so to say. Corruption, insecurity, and leadership.
Failure of leadership.
And people have been talking about institutional challenge, that this also revolves around institutional challenge. And for us to get it right, we must restructure. Some people say, no, constitution is not the problem. Our problem is implementation. So how do we get it right? Some things should be brought to concurrent list, some should be taken to residual list, some should be exclusive list, power should be given to the state, federal government should have what we have, fiscal federalism, all these terms associated with democracy. What should be the pointer to our own version of democracy that will help Nigerians?
Okay, now, from where I stopped, first of all, when I talk, let's look at the rule of law, which leads to about dealing with the problem of corruption. If you punish corruption, you take somebody to court today, every state judiciary should have a special courts to try corruption. You don't need to go to change constitution to do that. There should be every federal high court division should have a special court designated for trying corruption.
All right.
They should have a mandate that every case that is brought to you must not last more than 3 months. You have 90 days to conclude this trial. And then there should be special prosecutors, both at the state level and at the Federal Attorney General's office, to prosecute cases. Bring these private lawyers to work with state lawyers, not necessarily staff, but it could be consultants, it could be whatever, competent lawyers to help prosecute these cases, deal with them, imprison the people, seize their assets, make them serve as a deterrent to others. That's what I'm saying. We must fight corruption by any means necessary. I am opposed to the death penalty, but we can make somebody suffer in such a way that even his own children will be ashamed to call him their father. You see the point I'm making? That is one. The other issue about leadership that I mentioned, we should fight for a free and fair electoral process that the people will accept. That is an election that will flow from the free expression of the people's will.
And we have a replica of the June 12th, 1993 election.
We should have something better than June 12th.
Better than it.
When I say better than June 12th, something that cannot be annulled, because the institutions are strong, and the people have accepted it, and the people have embraced it, and nobody can annul them. You cannot manipulate the judiciary to annul them. The people will not support annulment, so nobody will campaign for those who annul. In fact, the military should be able to rise against those who are annulling, or the security forces. And if anybody dies in the process of fighting those trying to annul, there should be money taken from the consolidated fund to compensate his family.
All right, we need to go on a break at this point for the national news. But when we return, we'll get to engage you some more and then take calls and messages. Please stay with us.
Daybreak, the Daybreak Show. If getting you ahead in the field of nursing is essential, join us at Jaffat College of Nursing Science, Urijebu, Ogun State, Nigeria, as we are accredited by the National Board for Technical Education to run National Diploma Program in Nursing. Our registered nursing program qualifies our students to graduate with 100%, and this has been done for over 6 years, and we are admitting students into our ND, HND, and post-basic nursing programs. Therefore, candidates who score at least 100 marks in their UTME are encouraged to visit JAMB Accredited Center for change of institution to Jaffat College of Nursing Science, and then call Jaffat College on 07069557945 or 07041380882, or get in touch with them on www.jaffatcons.com. Daybreak, the Daybreak Show.
We don't just scratch the news, we dig deep for it. Breaking the beats and the chips of the analysis, line by line, tale by tale, narrating the antecedents you've never for once been told. We place the force of the rock behind every story, and that's the power of the rock. Rockcity 101.9 FM. 4 stories untold.
The biggest news stories. This is Rockcity FM News.